Hi, everyone. Welcome to Luxury Portfolio International's Connected Conversations. This is a series of one-on-one interviews, panel discussions, and conversations with thought leaders and industry experts designed to help LPI members gain inspiration and ideas from one another. I'm really excited to be back. We took a little break over the holidays, and this is actually our first conversation of 2021. And I'm so pleased to be joined by Evan Walsh of William Raveis Real Estate. Welcome, Evan.
Hey, how are you? Feeling
Good, good. Thanks
Glad
for
to be
joining
here.
me. I forgot to introduce myself. I'm Ann Colvin with Luxury Portfolio. And today I'm also really excited to be talking to Evan because we're talking about the Boston luxury market. And it's a city that's near and dear to my heart. So I'm really thrilled that we get to highlight it today and talk about what's happening there, because I know things are wild and things are busy. And so we're excited to hear from you about it.
Yeah, absolutely. Looking forward to telling you all about the Boston luxury market and how things are going kind of throughout Massachusetts.
Excellent. So let's start by getting to know you a little bit. Can you tell us a little bit about your own career in real estate, how you got here, and also a little bit about William Raveis, your company as well?
Yeah, it's a fun story. I've been in the business for just over 15 years, and I joined my parents, who actually started the family real estate team about 25 years ago. So as a family team, we've been in the business collectively for about 15. And again, they've been in it a little longer than myself.
Amazing.
We have three other great teammates that work with us, and collectively we sort of cover Boston Metro, the Metro West area, which is basically up to about Central Mass, and kind of cover the whole territory and gambit from there. So we have a lot of fun working together, and it's never a dull moment.
Amazing. I love a family business that is very kind of a true real estate story. So that's
Sure.
Amazing. And I wish we weren't talking about COVID, but here we are still talking about it. And I want to I think that it's important to talk about the market and frame
Sure.
it with what happened before and after. So tell me a little bit about, in the greater Boston area, what did the luxury market look like at this time last year, which was kind of just before COVID-19?
Well, at this point last year, obviously we weren't really expecting what had kind of went down. And so I think everything was actually looking really strong. Things were moving. There was decent inventory. I think there was sort of a real positivity in terms of people investing in real estate, and things were, I would say, healthy overall in the market. And that kind of went through all price points. Massachusetts is a great place to invest. Certainly the Boston metro area is great as well. And so we were feeling very good and optimistic. And then COVID hit, and it was sort of like bonkers for the first month. Nobody really knew what to do. I think everybody was, trying to kind of figure out and gauge, like, what are we going to do in this new environment? What is the new environment? And, sort of figure out the best way to handle it. And I think everybody was scared for the first 30 days, more or less, not just with COVID, but also with how business was going to run from that point on. We were very pleasantly surprised, I think, primarily as listing agents, to see that it didn't really slow things down. If anything, it actually sped things up. And the longer it went on with the shutdowns and, kind of stay in place orders and all that, there was this building and growing desire for people to kind of get out of their environment, kind of spread out, get more land. I feel bad for, people that may live in the city with, a house full of kids and, limited space. And so that's sort of, I would think, is probably our biggest group that came out, was, people looking for more space and room for kids.
Makes sense. And so now, fast forward to kind of almost a year to that time. What does the high-end market look like in your area now? How are things going today?
So the overall theme right now is lack of inventory. It doesn't matter whether it's, entry level, sort of mid-level, higher end in luxury. It's basically just a lack of inventory everywhere. So we're working exceptionally hard to try and identify properties before they come on the market. And that's why having a really good network is important, so that we can communicate with other agents, as well as, people that we've met along the way, to try and get any kind of lead on something that might be coming down the pike. I'm working on a few things right now that, were facilitated because they were sort of off-market opportunities. And, hopefully those will pan out.
Cross the fingers.
Yeah.
So you are based in Wellesley, which is just outside of Boston. And and I'm curious, you just touched on it a minute ago, but if we can go into a little more detail, how are the suburban markets in the greater Boston area performing compared to the city of Boston right now?
I would say right now they are outperforming in a big way. I think I mentioned it a little bit before with, people that might be feeling a little bit tight in their space in the city.
Right.
There's been a huge influx of people moving back out into the suburbs. Again, looking for more space. Excuse me, that's the dog. Looking for more space and some of the more rural activities. The other thing that's sort of happened is we're getting a lot of folks that would normally, think about moving into the city, not going anywhere. And so that I think is adding to the lack of inventory problem that we're having. So we'll kind of have to wait and see what this year brings. But overall, the market is strong. Median sale price is way up. And, it's if you can come out to the burbs, it's a great thing to do. So.
It's a beautiful place to live, that's for sure. And when you're talking about people moving into the city, is that like the empty nester crowd that you would typically see sort of downsizing and moving into the city, or are there other groups that you would typically see moving from the suburbs back into the city?
No, I think you're right. I think sort of the empty nester was probably the largest group kind of moving in there.
Yeah.
And I think just by the nature of who the empty nester was, I think that, because age kind of comes into play, they are considered perhaps an audience that might be more susceptible to COVID issues. And so I think there's a fear of moving into the city and whatnot. I do think that that's lightened up quite a bit.
Okay.
Even though I think that, some in Massachusetts anyways, the numbers are kind of on the increase, if you will.
Right.
But I think people have figured out kind of, how to manage it a little bit better than early on. And we are seeing that sort of loosen up. But it also creates a really great opportunity for investors if they're looking to get into the city. And my advice is, if you're looking to invest, it's a great time to invest, in the city of Boston and around. So. And
it's such an amazing city. So obviously, I mean, when life is normalish again, what a great place to have an investment property, when people are ready to move back in again. So that's fantastic advice. Geographically speaking, obviously your area is typically would see a lot of move out buyers coming from Boston to the suburbs, but I'm also curious geographically where people are coming from to your area in general, and if that's different than what you were seeing before.
I think sort of in the entry level and mid markets, it's sort of the same as it has been. Again, I think we're finding that people are coming out of sort of the more populated areas and then sort of into the burbs where it's, you can spread out a little bit more, have more space. In the luxury and the high-end markets, what we're finding is a lot of second home buyers. And also we're finding buyers that want to be closer to their kids who might be going to school. Okay. And with so many great, colleges and universities in Massachusetts and Boston, that seems to be a draw as well. So that, the kid doesn't have to fly home to Chicago or wherever they may be going. They can be more local and, provide a little outlet that way.
That's interesting. That's a very interesting kind of shift. Very cool. Also curious, with your high-end buyers right now, what kind of amenities and features are you finding are the most in demand with your high-end buyers right now?
Pool, number one.
Pool, yeah.
Absolutely. Right now, so we do a lot of new construction and we talk with a lot of different pool companies who are, they give us quotes all the time and whatnot. And right now they're running at like a 1 to 1.5 year wait on being able to even put a pool in. Properties that have pools, and again, this is like all price points. Typically we view pools as sort of a 50-50 Some people like it, some people don't. Right now, again, where everybody's sort of locked down, everybody wants a pool. So,
Absolutely.
yeah, so that's number one. Amenity number one is a pool. And then, sort of the staple features, everybody's looking for a theater, a wine room, and privacy would probably be the second highest on the list. Privacy and security, I think, is probably the second most important. And then the others are, certainly still there. So.
I'm curious too, in terms of the aesthetics of the house, are you getting pushback on older or more dated properties, or are those moving just as quickly or quicker than they would have before all of this?
That's a good question. I think that they're definitely moving quicker than they may have before. Again, I think just based on the sheer need that we need the inventory.
Yeah.
But I do think that that they are, people aren't afraid of doing a little work now. If they can find a good place to go and they know that the other things are sort of, have been addressed. And it's renovations right now are kind of through the roof, which I think is another thing that's adding to our lack of inventory. But
sure.
If there's a great house in a great neighborhood that has some of these nice amenities, it's not going to stop anybody from getting in there and doing the work. Or we find that some of these buyers, they're cash buyers and they may not need to sell in order to buy, which allows them the time and flexibility they need to kind of do the renovations and go through the process before they move in. So unfortunately, not everyone is in that position, but the higher end buyer sometimes is. So
makes sense. So I'm going to give you a platform now and speak to any prospective affluent buyers out there. Tell us why you think investing in property in Boston and in the Boston area is a really good investment, particularly right now.
I think Massachusetts is it's a unique state. I think that we're sort of the heart of New England in a lot of ways.
Yep.
And again, I think most of that is driven just by the medical facilities that we have, the universities and colleges that we have, the fact that we're a coastal community from the North Shore all the way down to the tip of Cape Cod. And so there's a lot of different things that we offer. Schools still are the number one draw in terms of public education. Comparatively to other parts of the country, that's still the main draw. And that obviously helps with resale value, et cetera. So I think that is the number one reason to come here. And then, it's a beautiful place. It's unmatched history almost, anywhere other than, other parts of the world. I was showing property in Concord, Mass, which is where, our country was essentially founded in a lot of ways, right? And it's just, it's a joy to drive through some of these older and historic towns, and you really get a vibe for the culture here. So that would be the number one reason I would move here. And you have nice people like me to help you.
That's true. Give them a call. I lived in Boston about 13 years ago. And it's amazing to me to see that there wasn't a lot of construction happening when I lived there at that time. And the city is almost unrecognizable now. I mean, compared to a decade ago, what's happened with the Seaport area, it's really, it's quite impressive. And it's really, it's really nice growth, I think, to see. And I think also speaks to the point of this is a good place to invest because there's clearly a lot that's happening in this market.
Absolutely. I think before COVID hit, and I'm sure that this is sort of a theme everywhere, that development was going on. Yeah. There's a crane on almost every block, redevelopment and lots of, large unit buildings going in. And they haven't slowed down. They're still pushing through. And I really believe that, that market's going to come back exceptionally well. And they're kind of signs already that it's starting to. So that's obviously a good thing too. Really
good news, and crossing fingers for 2021 to be a strong year and a better year for everybody and in every business too. It's my last question for you, and this sort of speaks to our theme of low inventory. What advice would you offer to homeowners that are on the fence about going on the market this year? What would you tell them?
There has probably never in our history been a better time to sell. Again, sort of the issues that we're faced with is a lot of people don't have a place to go.
Right.
But what I would say is, to a more affluent buyer who might have a second home, get your primary residence or whatever home it is that you're planning on selling, get it on the market. Take advantage of the huge buyer pool that we have. It's competitive all across the board. We have a $15 million listing in Dover that has been competitive, very competitive for the last, basically ever since we've listed it. So, and it's just a unique time in real estate. And so I would just highly recommend, get the property on the market as soon as you can. We've been trying to, as a team, put together short-term living solutions so that people may not have the fear of, not knowing where to go.
Sure.
And so we're looking at, whether it's a short-term rental or temporary housing, we're trying to kind of give people an option so that they don't feel like there's no place to go, because that can be an unsettling feeling if you have your house sold and you don't really know where you're going. So,
yes.
Try to help people out as best we can in those areas.
I mean, that's such a nice part of that sort of all-encompassing customer service part of what you do too. So that's great. That's a great advice too for any of our other agents that are watching. Evan, thank you for your time and for sharing your expertise. It was nice to chat with you. Much appreciated. And
thank you. Yeah, it was great chatting with you as well.
Wishing you a busy and successful 2021. Crossing fingers,
absolutely.
and healthy too. Everybody else, don't forget to listen and follow us on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. Thank you, Evan.